Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this little flower chain bracelet. I'm going to call it daisy bracelet because it isn't a traditional daisy chain, but it does have this little chain effect in between. So it would be a good name for it, but I'm just going to call it a daisy bracelet. This is very easy and it's really cute. And you can see I used multiple colors in mine. You can use one solid color and it would look just as pretty, but I just wanted to use a strand of multicolors that I had of my beads, so I did that. I also want to show you those who have the treasure box and those who do not, because I'm going to list a whole bunch of these butterflies. I have made a matching piece to go with this bracelet with the same pattern, so with my butterfly pendant. So you can use any pendant you want, and that will be the next tutorial, will be the necklace with the same stitch that I used this bracelet in. So I'm going to list a bunch of these butterflies in a bunch of different colors. You can use any color scheming you want. The same with this bracelet. You can use any color scheming you would like. So, and I'll probably make a pair of earrings too. But I just wanted you to see what that looks like. And let's go ahead and look at the material list and get started. Okay, so what we need for this particular project is we will need some 4mm round beads. I am using a mix of 4mm rounds. This is my pink mix. I have it in my store if you'd like to get some. Otherwise, you can mix up a couple of colors of 4mm rounds, or you can just do all one color. It doesn't truly matter. And so I'm going to use the pink mix, and then I'm going to use a butter 6mm round pearl. I do have some of those in my store too if you want some. Otherwise, use anything 6mm round. You can use a crystal, you can use a pearl, or whatever. Then we're going to be using some 11O seed beads. This is Toho Galvanized Permanent Finish Starlight. I'm going to use a pretty good amount, so just have a pretty good little pile out there for you. And then we're going to need a clasp. You can use a toggle if you'd like. I'm going to use a lobster claw and about a 7mm jump ring, and then 2 4mm jump rings and 2 small wire guardians. Let you see what's going on here. So this is what you're going to need for your clasping. You can do your clasping differently than I do. You can just sew your clasping right on. You can use a toggle, but I'm going to go ahead and put wire guardians on for this one and use some jump rings and clasping. So then you're going to need some Fireline or Nanofill. I'm using 6-pound Fireline, and I'm going to start with a wingspan. You're going to need to extend your Fireline or Nanofill for this project, and I will put a link so that you can do that in the description box beneath the video player if you don't know how. So just pull off enough thread for a wingspan, which is when you put your arms out to your sides like you're going to fly away. Measure from the fingertips of the first hand the length of that arm across your chest, the length of the second arm to your fingertips. That is a wingspan. We will start with that and go ahead and thread your needle. I'm using a size 12. You can also use a size 10 for this project. That's fine. And let's go ahead and get started. Let's begin this project by picking up one of your 6mm round beads onto your needle. And then let's go ahead and bring it down to the end of the thread here. Now, you don't have to leave a long tail, but enough to hold on to. And then you are going to pick up an 11O, and then you're going to pick up 3 4mm rounds. So I'm just picking them up in random colors since I have a mix, and then I'm going to pick up another 11O. So this is what you should have, and then you're going to go back into the pearl from the tail side. Hold on to that tail, hold on to your pearl, and pull these beads around like this. So you formed half of your flower. Get you in a little closer. And then we're just going to continue holding on to that tail, and we're going to pick up an 11O and 3 more beads of your 4mm round. And again, mine are random color. And then another 11O. Just like this. Then I'm going to go into the opposite side. I'm coming out of the pearl. So I'm going to go into this tail side here. Everything's going to get kind of weird as you do this. Hold on to the tail so that it doesn't get too out of whack, and this is what you should have. Now we're going to sew back through these beads we just put on. So we're going to go up through the 11-0 and then all 3 of the 4mm rounds on this side of the pearl. And then I'm just going to pull through and I'm going to go back through my pearl. This first one we're going to do a little bit more sewing through simply to secure it because it's the end of the bracelet. Then once we're through this pearl again, we're going to sew through this side of the beads we put on. So we're going to go through the 11-0 and all 3 of the 4mm rounds. Back through the 11-0 and up through the pearl. Get my tail out of there. Now just pull on the tail and pull on the working thread, and this is what you should have. Now we are going to go into this 11-0 seed bead here, just into the 11-0, just like this. And we're going to pick up 2 11-0s onto our needle. And I'm just going to get a tiny bit closer here. Then we're going to go into the opposite 11-0 we're coming out of. So we're coming out of this one, we're going to go into this one and the one we're coming out of. So just go into both of them, just like this, and then pull your thread through. Pull this down, tighten everything up, and then we're going to sew through that again. So we're coming out of the bottom set of 11-0s, we're going to go into the top set of both of them. And they want to move around and do weird things, just get into both of them, pull, and then go back into the bottom set. So basically we're doing a ladder stitch right onto our unit here. Then go back into both of the beads on the bottom. Sometimes the angles will be funny and it takes a second, but you can do it. And then we're coming out of the bottom set here, we're going to go back into this top set. Now we're going to put a wire guardian on. This is going to be prepared for our clasping. So you're just going to pick up your wire guardian. I'm going to get close for this because it's little. So you're going to pick up your wire guardian, go into one side of it. There's little tubes on the other side. Go into one tube, bring it down to your piece, position it, and then go through the other side. Maybe. Just like this. And then I'm going to hold on to this with my thumb and finger, and I'm going to pull the thread through. I can feel my thread guide up into the little divot on top of the wire guardian because you don't want it to fall on either side of the wire guardian. You want it to go into the divot on top. So guiding your thread through with your thumb and your finger like that helps. Then we're going to go into both of the 11-0s in the set we're attaching to, just like this. Now things are kind of weird looking right now. That's okay. We'll get it nice and neat, reposition it, and then we're going to sew back up through that wire guardian again. So we're going to go back up through the wire guardian on this side, pull your thread through, then go into the wire guardian on the other side, just like this. Put your thumb and finger over it, pull it through, direct that thread into the divot on the wire guardian, and then go back into the set that we're attaching to. Now, just because we need this to be more solid than this, and you can see my thread just fell through, I have to bring that back up. So I'll grab my thread, loosen it up a little bit, and then guide it back into the divot on the top here by pulling on my thread. Just like that. Now we're going to go into the bottom set of the 11-0s here. to make sure that we're not disattaching it to these two little 11 O's without any more strength than that. It'll just pull out. So while you're wearing your bracelet. So go down into the bottom set, go back into the top set, and then go back through the wire guardian one more time. That will give us 3 passes of thread through the wire guardian, and it should be pretty secure. So I've gone through the wire guardian on one side. I'm going to go into the other side of the wire guardian, pull and guide my thread in, and then I'm going to go back into the set of 11 O's that I'm attaching to, go back into the bottom set of 11 O's here, and I'm going to go into this first 4mm round if I can, and I can't. So I'm just going to go through these two here. And now my wire guardian is on. It's nice and neat. Everything looks good. We're going to sew down through the 3 4mm rounds on the side where our thread is coming out. And we're going to work our bracelet from this tail side. So I'm just going to tuck the tail up underneath my piece like this for the moment. And once we've secured these 2 bottom and started to prepare for our next unit, we can get rid of that tail. But right now, just hold on to it. Go into the 2 11 O's. So we're coming out of this 4mm round. Go into these 2 11 O's. Pull your thread through, and then pick up 2 11 O seed beads. And go back into the 2 you just came out of on the opposite side from which you're coming out. Just like this. Pull these 2 down, and then sew back through the 2 you just added. Right here, just like this. Hold on to them. Go back up through the first 2, because that's going to distort it a little, so go back up through the first 2, and then back into the 2 you just put on. Just like that. Now, we can cut this tail off. So I'm just going to cut it off close to the pearl here. And I am going to pick up 2 more 11 O seed beads. So we're coming out of this side of these 2 11 O's. We're going to go into the opposite side. Just like this. And we're going to pull these down. Now we're going to sew back through the 2 we just put on, because we're coming out of the previous set. Go back into the new set. Hold on with your thumb and finger. That keeps it from distorting as you pull your thread through, and you can get a nice little tight pull at the end and make everything neat. Go back into the previous set. And then this time when we come through the second set, we're just going to come through 1 11 O, just like this. Then you're going to pick up a 6mm round, and then you're going to pick up an 11 O and 3 of your 4mm rounds. And you're going to bring this up, and I'll show you what we have. So you have your 11 O, your 6mm round, 11 O, and your 3 4mm rounds. Then you're going to come back through the bead you're coming out of, the 11 O here. You're going to go into the opposite side from which you're coming out, just like this, and you're going to pull these down, and it creates half of your flower. Now we want to sew and secure this, so we're going to go back down into the 6mm round here. Then we are going to go into the 4mm round, or the 11 O, and all 3 of the 4mm rounds. And you may have to do them one at a time. Sometimes you can get a couple at a time, just whatever works for you. Then go back through this 11 O here, and back through the pearl. Now you have secured that side of your flower. You are going to pick up an 11 O, 3 of your 4mm round beads, and then you're going to go back into the 11 O on the opposite side from which we started. So we started out of this 11 O in our little ladder stitch. We're going to go into the other one now. Go into it, and then go into the 6mm round bead and pull. Oops, I'm sorry. So this is what we have now. We have to secure this, so we're going to go into the 11-0 and all 3 of the 4mm rounds, giving a little tug after we go through. Go back into the 11-0 attached to the pearl. Go into the pearl, and then just exit the pearl like this. So I'm not going into anything, just the pearl. Now I can grab these two 11-0s and go into both of them. So I'm just moving my thread over to the side because it's coming out of the middle of the pearl, and I'm going to go through both of my 11-0s, just like this. Then I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and go back into the 2 11-0s I'm coming out of on the opposite side from which I'm coming out, just like this, and create a ladder stitch. Now, with any ladder stitch, you need to sew back through it, or it's not really going to stay there well. So we're going to go back into the 2 new beads because we're coming out of the 2 previous beads. Then we're going to go back into the 2 previous beads and back into the 2 11-0s we put on. So basically, you're just sewing a circle like that. And I have a little slip knot in my thread. Let me fix that. And now we're going to put one more set of 11-0s on the set we just made. So pick up 2 11-0s, go into the opposite side of the 11-0s you're coming out of, just like this. Pull it down. Go back through the 2 11-0s you just put on. So we'll do 3 sets of ladder stitch. So then we're going to go back into this set and then back into the set we just put on, and that completes that stitch. And actually, I just messed up. So I'm going to go back through just one of the 11-0s. So when you're coming through and you're securing your last one, you just want to come through one because we need to be coming out of the middle of the set. Of course, I could have sewn back around and come back through, but that's fine too. So now I'm coming out of the 3rd set of ladder stitch. We're going to pick up a 6mm round, and then we're going to pick up an 11-0 and 3 4mm round beads onto our needle. And we're going to drop this down to our piece, and then we will go back through the 11-0 we're on this side here. So we're going to just come through this one here. We're coming out of the middle, so we just pick one and go through it. And then we are going to sew back through the entire thing. So go into the 6mm round here, and then go back through the 11-0 and all 3 of your 4mm rounds into the 11-0 we started in and down through the pearl. And that's kind of hard to do. So just go through the 11-0, pull everything tight so you don't have any slack between your pearl and your set of 11-0s here. Then go back through your pearl. Give a little tug so everything's nice and neat like this. Then you're going to do the same thing again. Pick up an 11-0 and 3 of your beads. Some of these beads are hard to see the hole in because they're opaque and I can't see it. Okay, that one's being stubborn, so I'll just get a different one. Okay, so I've got my 11-0 and my 3 4mm rounds. I'm going to come back up through the 11-0 on the other side here, just like this. And then I'm going to go through the pearl. Then I'm going to sew back around this set I just put on. So I'll go into the 11-0 and all 3 of the 4mm round beads. into the 11-0 again, and then, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling this all over the place here today, and then back down into my purl. So I just went through the 111-0 here, so I'm going to go back down through my purl. I'm in the center of the 211-0s here because I'm coming out of the purl. I'm going to go under the 11-0 on this side and then through the other 11-0, just like this. Pull my thread through, and then I'm going to pick up, I have the dropsies today, my goodness. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s, and I am going to go into the opposite side of the 2 11-0s I'm coming out of, so here, just like this. And then I'm going to pull my 2 11-0s down, and then I'm going to go back through the 2 I just put on, and back through the 2 previous. And sometimes they get little weird angles. You just have to kind of angle your needle the best you can and get through them. It's not hard. It's just the thread, as you pull it through, can kind of angle them funny. So then I'm coming out of the 2 here on the unit, the previous 2, and then I'm going to go back into the 2 that I just added. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more. We'll do 1 more flower, and then we'll go to length. So I've got my 2 11-0s. I have to sew through to secure it, so I'll go back through them, back through the 2 that I'm attaching to, and then back through the 2 I just put on. However, if you want to, you can go back through 2, but then if you do that, you have to come back through the top 2, which is just an extra thing of thread. But when you're ready to make your next unit, you have to split the 2 11-0s and come up through the 2 11-0s. So I just sewed that extra time around to show you, like when I didn't come through on this particular unit, I could have just sewn through again. As long as you're just coming out your last pass, you come out of 1 11-0, that's where you want to be to start your next unit. So you pick up your 6mm round, then you will pick up an 11-0, and you will pick up 3 4mm rounds. Drop these down, and then come back into the 11-0 you're coming out of, on the opposite side from which you're coming out. Pull this down, and then sew back through. So we're going to go directly into this purl, pull, tighten everything up, and then sew back through all 3 of the 11-0 and all 3 of the 4mm rounds. Then go back into the 11-0 you attached to. I keep trying to go back into the purl at the same time. I did it. And then back into the purl. Tighten things up a little bit with a tiny tug. And let's do this half of the flower. Pick up an 11-0 and then pick up 3 of your 4mm rounds. Go into the 11-0 on the opposite side from which you started, so this one here, and into the purl, if you can. If you can't, do it in 2 different movements, but just make sure you go through the 11-0 and then through the purl. And then go back into your 11-0 and all 3 of the 4mm rounds into the 11-0 you attach to, into your purl, and come out just through the purl. Go underneath your 11-0s and pick up 2 11-0s. And of course you will make 3 sets here. So this is how you're going to, so 3 sets of ladder stitch is what I was talking about. So this is how you're going to do this entire thing. It's very easy, very repetitive, and we're going to continue until we have 12 units, or about an inch short of the length you want to finish with. So if I measure this, allowing for my clasping and my jump ring to put on my bracelet here on the wire guardian, I am going to be just a little over 7 inches, because I give myself about a half inch, a little bit more than a half inch, to complete the clasping on this side too. So if I scoot this all the way over, at the tip of my wire guardian, I'm right just slightly over 6 inches. So by the time I get everything put on here, I'm going to be a little over 7 inches is what I'm calculating, and we'll measure to make sure. But once you have established the length you want, you may need to make one less or one more than I do to get the length that you want. Then we will put on our wire guardian on this side. So I'm coming out of my beads here, and also I want to mention, because we only started with 2 sets here of the 11 O's, we're going to end with 2 sets. So you will see all the other units have 3 sets. On the end here, I just have 2. If you're doing a toggle, you may want to do 2 on this end and 3 on this end to give yourself more extension for the toggle to properly operate, and you'll put your straight end on the 3 units. But if you are doing like I'm showing you, then you want to end on 2 units of 11 O's, and then you're going to be coming out of the last unit after securing. Then you're going to go ahead and go up through your wire guardian, just like this, bring it down, and then go into the other side of the wire guardian, hold on to it, guide your thread down into it, and then go back into your 11 O's on the opposite side, just like this. I hope I was in frame there. And pull this down. It's exactly the same thing we did last time on the other side. So go ahead and sew up through this again, and then go down into the second set, come back up into the first set, and do it again, making sure you have 3 passes. We're doing it exactly the same way we did the other side. So if you need to back up the video and reference the other side to put on your wire guardian, then do that. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of mine off camera, and I will come back, show you how to tie off and put on your clasping. So now I have gone through my wire guardian 3 times, and now I'm coming out of this top set. After doing so, I'm going to go down into the bottom set again of the 11 O's, just like this, push through. Then I'm going to go into one of these 4mm rounds, and right here between the beads, I'm going to go underneath, and I'm going to create a loop with my thread, and I'm going to tie a knot right on that little piece of thread between the beads. So I'm going to go through that loop and guide my thread to make sure it goes down between the beads and not on top of them, and then secure a little knot on that thread. Then I'm going to go into the next bead. Excuse me, my voice is going away. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go underneath those beads, make a loop, tie a knot, secure the knot down on that thread bridge, and then I'm going to go into the next 4mm round and both the 11 O's, like this. Pull this through. I'm going to go into the next set of 11 O's, and then into the next set again between the 2 4mm rounds on the next one. And again, these ones get a little funny angles, so I'm going to go through one at a time. I'll go through this one, and then I'll go through this one, go through the next 4mm round, and tie another knot on the thread bridge between the beads. And then I'm going to go through these 2 4mm rounds here, and into the 11 O's here. And then I'm just going to cut this off really close to those 11 O's. You can leave a tag and melt it down, but that is basically how I'm going to do it. Now I have my bracelet body finished. All I need to do is put on my clasping. So I'm going to grab my 2 small jump rings, which I have 4mm jump rings, and I'm going to put my lobster claw on one end, and I'm going to put my jump ring with a small jump ring on the other end. So you want a heavy gauge jump ring for the other end, just to make sure that it's not going to open and cause a weakness in your bracelet. So let me grab another pair of pliers here. And I'm just going to open a 4mm round. So yeah, a 4mm round jump ring. So I'm just placing my pliers on either side of the opening and twisting it open. And then I'm going to drop my lobster claw on it. And then I'm going to put it on the wire guardian, just like this, and close it the same way I opened it. Just bring it back and close it. Make sure it's closed nice and flush. Make sure you're using a nice strong jump ring. Don't use like a 26 gauge or something crazy like that. Make sure you have at least a 20 to 18 gauge jump ring for your small ones and for your big one too. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Get you a little closer. I have my jump ring, my opening's here. I'm going to grab my other pair of pliers and just twist it open and put it onto the wire guardian. Then I'm going to put my big jump ring on and close my little one. And then I'm going to make sure my big one is closed properly, because they never are. And I'm just going to do the same thing, just close it by shimmying it a little bit. I actually opened it more. I may have to get a different jump ring. This one doesn't close properly. But that's the gist of it. You just put it on there, and I will put a different one on because that one doesn't close very well. And now let's measure and see how big the bracelet is. Now that we have the clasping on, and this is about a 7 to 8mm round on here, so that'll kind of give you an idea of what I'm measuring. So I'm measuring from the tip of the lobster claw to the end of the jump ring that I used. And of course my lobster claw is not a big one either. You can also see that it's just about 1/4 of an inch here. So it will depend on the size of your clasping, how big of a bracelet you get, but I'm getting right at a 7-inch bracelet with the amount of units that I have made. Now I'm going to go ahead and go off camera, change this jump ring, come back and show you what this looks like on the wrist. And here, my friends, is what it looks like on the wrist. Fits very well. It's right at 7 inches, so it gives me some room to move around because my wrist is a little under 6.5 inches, right around 6.5, something like that. And so it works really well. And the clasping is pretty. And that's what that looks like. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you make one. Bye-bye.